We all love an underdog story, but what happens on the Giants stumble? Today, we're taking a deep dive into Manchester United. Legendary status, global fan base, the whole nine yards. But lately, things haven't been quite so glamorous.
Yeah, it's amazing how quickly perceptions can change. For an institution like Manchester United, they're under INEOS ownership now, and some of their cost-cutting measures have definitely ruffled some feathers. It's the least you could say.
It's more than ruffled feathers. I mean, there's this recent report about how they treated a longtime employee, and people are talking, and not in a good way. So we're going to unpack all of this, look at it from all sides. And, you can decide if Manchester United is really living up to its own legacy.
Yeah, exactly. This isn't just about, spreadsheets and bottom lines. This is about people history, what happens when a beloved institution faces some tough choices, and some might say questionable ones.
Let's start by talking about Kath Phipps. She wasn't a star player or a manager, but for over 50 years, she was a fixture at Manchester United. I mean, we're talking about someone who started working there in 1968 under Sir Matt Busby himself.
That's right. She worked at both Old Trafford and Carrington. Eventually, Sir Alex Ferguson brought her to the training complex. I mean, think about the history. She saw firsthand legendary players, everyday staff. I mean, she was part of the fabric of the club.
And beloved, clearly, when she passed away last December, tributes came pouring in from all over the football world, including big names like Wayne Rooney.
But this is where things get really interesting, and to be honest, pretty upsetting. Just 2 working days after she died, Manchester United reached out to her next of kin to ask about her season tickets.
Yeah, you can't make this stuff up. The Telegraph reported that staff members were absolutely stunned and disgusted by this move. Now, the club has said that it was just a misunderstanding. They're saying there was no official request to get the tickets back.
Of course they did, but you have to see this incident in the context of how INEOS manages things. They've put in place some really serious cost-cutting measures, and this seems to fit a pattern.
Absolutely. We're talking about a reported loss of almost £300 million over the past 3 years. So to get back on track, INEOS has made some pretty drastic moves.
They even took away Sir Alex Ferguson's paid ambassador status, and they got rid of free travel for staff to go to finals.
And let's not forget those ticket price hikes, up to £66 a match.
Right, it's all connected, and there are reports of another 100 job losses coming up, even after they already let go of more than 250 staff members. I mean, it's a tense situation, to say the least.
But this whole story about Kath Phipps' season tickets, it just feels different. It feels like a symbol of how things have changed at Manchester United, and not in a good way.
It definitely raises question about how they're balancing their financial needs with just basic human decency.
Speaking of decency, let's talk about Phipps' colleagues. They're a bright spot in all of this. Despite what the club did, Phipps' friends at United, even some who had already been let go, stepped up in an incredible way.
They set up a daily schedule using WhatsApp to make sure she was never alone in her final months. It really shows you the loyalty and camaraderie that exists within the club, despite what's happening with the management.
It's really heartwarming to hear that. And this wasn't just any employee. Kath Phipps was woven into the history of Manchester United. She was close with players, even appeared in David Beckham's Netflix documentary back in 2023.
And don't forget, she got that Service to Football award in 2022. Beckham himself praised her dedication. He said she was always the first person he'd see at the training ground, and that he'd be forever grateful to her.
She represents what Manchester United used to be about. It makes you wonder what Sir Matt Busby or Sir Alex Ferguson would think about all this.
It's such a stark contrast to how they're doing things now. All this cost-cutting and focus on profits. You could almost say they've forgotten about the human side of things.
Yeah, it really does feel like they've forgotten what made the club great. So we talked about Kath Phipps, the season ticket thing, and INEOS and other cost-cutting measures. What does all this mean for Manchester United, for the club itself, and for the fans?
Well, if you think about the bigger picture, there seems to be a growing disconnect between the club and management and its history, its employees, and yeah, even its fans.
I was reading some stuff online, and a lot of fans are saying this is just like what happened with the Glazers. They feel like the club is being treated like a business first. No regard for its legacy or the people who make it special.
Yeah, that's a valid point. And this whole Kath Phipps thing just adds fuel to the fire. It just makes it seem even more like INEOS cares more about profits than people. And that can be dangerous for a club that relies so much on its fans, their passion and loyalty.
Right, and it makes you wonder what happens in the long term with this kind of approach. Will it alienate fans? Will it damage the club's reputation? I mean, how much can you squeeze them before something breaks?
It could definitely do both. When you lose the trust and goodwill of your fans and employees, it can be really hard to get that back. Manchester United isn't just a business, it's a cultural institution. It has a global reach.
And let's be real, Manchester United is already facing some serious challenges on the pitch. They haven't won a Premier League title in years. Their performance has been inconsistent at best.
Exactly. So you have to ask, is this really the right time to be making all these cuts and making people angry? It seems like a risky strategy, to say the least. I think any business professor would tell you your employees are your greatest asset. And treating them like this, well, it sends a pretty clear message.
It's tough because on the one hand, you understand they need to be financially stable, but on the other hand, you don't want to lose the soul of the club in the process.
It's a balancing act, and it raises a big question. What's the responsibility of a club like Manchester United to its employees, its fans, and its own history? Can you really separate those things?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is, and it's a question that everyone listening will have to answer for themselves.
We've talked about the money side, the impact on morale, but what about the players? Do you think all of this affects how they play on the pitch? I mean, these are human beings, not robots.
That's a really good question, and it's definitely something we can't ignore. It's hard to imagine this not having some kind of impact on the players. I mean, they're part of this whole thing too, seeing longtime staff members get let go. Hearing about stuff like this with Kath Phipps, it has to create uncertainty and anxiety.
It's like a family going through a hard time. Even if you try to keep things separate, that tension just seeps into everything.
Exactly, and for athletes who need to be focused and confident, that kind of environment can really hurt them. Think about it. You're out there on the pitch giving your all for the club, and you see how the people you've known for years are being treated. It has to affect you on some level.
So let's say we're INEOS and we're listening to this right now. What should we take away from this? What should they be doing differently? What advice would you give them?
Well, the first thing is they need to realize there's a problem. They need to acknowledge how their employees and fans are feeling and understand that their actions have consequences.
Yeah, they need to show some empathy, like they're dealing with actual people, not just numbers on a spreadsheet.
Exactly, and they need to find a way to balance their financial goals with the human element. Maybe that means slowing down the cuts, finding different solutions, or just communicating better with everyone. This isn't a dictatorship. It's a football club. It has a rich history and passionate fans.
It's like they've forgotten that football is about more than just money. It's about the history, the tradition, the connection with the fans. And yeah, the people who work there, it's about the heart and soul of the club.
Exactly, and those things are hard to measure on a balance sheet, but they're so important to the long-term success of any organization, especially a football club with such a rich legacy.
So where do we go from here? What can fans do? What should they be asking their club? I mean, what can you do if you're listening to this and you're as upset as we are?
Well, fans have a lot of power. They shouldn't be afraid to use it. They can hold the club accountable. Through protests, social media campaigns, even by contacting their local MPs, make their voices heard.
Yeah, they need to make it clear that this kind of behavior isn't okay. They won't stand for it. What message does it send to the world when a club like Manchester United treats its people like this?
Exactly, and they should demand transparency from the club's leadership. Ask tough questions about their plans. What's their long-term vision? What are their financial plans? How are they going to protect the club's heritage or their values? Where are they taking this club? Those are questions they need to answer.
Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about Manchester United. It's about a bigger trend in football. And even in society as a whole, we're seeing more and more focus on making as much money as possible, often at the expense of people and values.
It's a worrying trend, and it's up to all of us as fans, as consumers, as citizens, to push back against it and demand better. We have to hold these institutions accountable and remind them that they're not just businesses. They're part of something bigger than themselves.
We've covered a lot today, from Kath Phipps passing away and the season ticket thing to INEOS's controversial cost-cutting measures and what it all means for Manchester United and football in general.
It's been a deep dive into a complex issue and an emotional one. It makes us ask important questions about how much we value people and institutions in a world that's changing so fast.
Yeah, it is tough. And honestly, there are no easy answers. But I do think it's a conversation we need to be having, not just about Manchester United, but about any organization, any business, any place that says it cares about its people. You know, actions speak louder than words.
Oh, absolutely. And I think what's so frustrating for a lot of Manchester United fans is that this club has always been about more than just, winning trophies. It's about community, a shared history, a real connection between the players, the staff, and the supporters.
Yeah, it's like a family. And right now, it feels like that family is being torn apart.
That's a great way to put it. And I think what happened with Kath Phipps, as sad as it is, it's brought those feelings to the surface. It's made people question what Manchester United really stands for, what it really means to be a part of this club.
And what happens when those values are just ignored so they can make more money?
That's the heart of the problem, isn't it? And it's not easy to fix, but I think the first step is admitting there's a problem. Recognizing that how INEOS is doing things is causing real pain and making people lose faith.
So where do we go from here? What's the solution? Can this be fixed? Can they get that sense of community and purpose back?
Well, it's going to take effort from everyone. INEOS needs to be willing to listen to their employees and fans, to really talk to them, and be more open about how they make decisions.
Yeah, they need to show they actually care about the people who make this club what it is.
Exactly. And the fans need to keep holding the club accountable, making their voices heard and demanding better.
It goes both ways. It won't be easy. But I think it's worth fighting for. Manchester United is more than just a football club. It's a symbol of something bigger, something that people all over the world connect with.
Yeah, it's about passion, loyalty, community, and a love of the game. And those are values worth saving.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Manchester United, I think we have more questions than answers. But I hope this has at least helped you understand how complex this situation is and the challenges they face.
I agree. And I hope it's made you think about the role these big organizations play in our lives and how important it is to hold them to their values.
Because at the end of the day, it's up to all of us to create the kind of world we want to live in, the kind of clubs we want to support, and the kind of legacy we want to leave behind.
We all have a voice, and it's up to us to use it. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It would really help us out.